Woohoo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9 The News and Talk Bloomington Normal. It was so great chatting with all of you out at Lake Bloomington at the Davis Lodge in Hudson. It was a beautiful lakeside setting. There were kids bouncing in the bounce house. I got to meet all kinds of new and old listeners. Got to hang out with some of y'all, and it was great chatting with you, and it was great getting out the vote with the McLean County Republicans. So big thank you to the McLean County Republicans for having Scott and I out, Scott Robbins from the Markley Van Camp and Robbins Show. I did speak. I gave a little spiel up there, and I talked about how important it is to get out and vote and, to educate yourself. Every year, people ask me, Kat, who do I vote for? Who should I vote for? And, I scratch my head every single year and I'm like, are you not listening to the show? Are you not doing your own research? I mean, you got to do your own research. And there's these little stories out there about Sharon Chung, Dave Kaler. I gave a story last night about Dave Kaler in my speech at the Davis Lodge about how, I was looking at old commercials of his 17 years ago. He was on a YouTube commercial. It was so old that he actually started out the YouTube commercial with, "Hi, my name's Dave Kaler, and this is my YouTube commercial." Because YouTube was so new, that's how people started out their commercials, so that way they'd know, oh, this is a YouTube commercial. But it was so old. 17 years ago, he was promising to lower your property taxes. He did the exact opposite, folks. He expanded the Bloomington Normal Airport Authority's tax base to include all of McLean County. And that's taxation without representation. There was a law that he circumvented that was currently on the books. He changed that law. I asked him, hey, why was that law on the books? And he goes, I couldn't tell you. I'll tell you why the law was on the books. It's called taxation without representation. You need representation. You need to ask the voters to expand the tax base. You need to ask the voters if you want to raise their taxes, their property taxes. So, we were out in Hudson, and I actually met a couple of listeners who lived right there on the lake. And, I thought about how their property taxes just got raised because Dave Kaler got in again, and he's been there so long and he promised to lower them. But here you are 20 years later after that YouTube commercial that he made, and you're still paying way more property taxes. You're probably paying from 20 years ago, triple, quadruple the amount you were paying 20 years ago. So, these politicians, they get in there and they make promises that they have no intention of keeping. They have no intention of keeping. In fact, they'll do the exact opposite, which happened in Dave Kaler's case. I could go on. Sharon Chung, the sheriff, the former sheriff, not Matt Lane, but John Sandage, he comes out and he's talking right across the table from me, telling me about how emails, that exposed that Sharon Chung was in communication with the families of inmates. She was causing tension between the correctional officers and the inmates in the McLean County Jail. John Sandage went as far as to say that there was a connection or, a correspondence between an inmate who had white supremacy tattoos. He's got white supremacy tattoos. She's communicating with inmates' family members about possibly suing McLean County for their treatment within the McLean County Jail. I went to the McLean County Jail at that point. She hadn't even stepped foot into the McLean County Jail. Don't know if she's been to the McLean County Jail yet, like Kamala Harris refuses to go to the border. But Sharon Chung, she was making all of these allegations about the McLean County Jail. Not once did she step inside of the McLean County Jail and making all of these accusations that the inmates were being mistreated. I walked into that jail. A lot of those inmates have resources that I didn't even have in college. Okay. Illinois State University's campus didn't even have some of the resources that these inmates have. Okay. They're treated very well. It is prison. Okay. So it is jail. So it's as well as jail can be, I guess. But she was trying to get this white supremacy tatted inmate to file a lawsuit against the county with taxpayer dollars. I mean, we'd have to pay that out with your money, and there's little stories like that where with all of these candidates, I don't think a lot of people know that about Sharon Chung. I don't think a lot of people know that about Dave Kaler, with him expanding that tax base for the Bloomington Normal Airport Authority and not asking the people via a referendum, hey, can we raise your property taxes? Because that was what the current law had said before he changed it all. He said, the law said, hey, you have to bring it to referendum if you want to raise people's property taxes. You got to do it. And he circumvented that law, changed it to where you don't need to ask the people to raise their taxes. So those two stories, tell 10 friends about them and get them to the box, get them to the ballot box, and get them to go vote, and tell 10 friends about, Dave Kaler raising the property taxes of the surrounding Bloomington Normal area without their consent. I'm not against the Bloomington Normal Airport Authority. If they needed more money, that's awesome. Go ask. You got to ask, right? We got to bring things to referendum and ask the voters. All right, I got so much to get to this hour. MSNBC, this host absolutely loses his marbles, his mind, when this anti-Trumper is actually a Trump impeachment witness. He said that he's voting for Donald Trump anyway. Okay, and then you can imagine the MSNBC guy completely losing his mind. He's got severe TDS. I also want to talk about Joe Biden possibly sabotaging Kamala Harris's campaign. I mean, we all know what they did to Joe. Top Democrats, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, they threatened to invoke the 25th Amendment unless he bowed out of the 2024 race. Joe Biden, is not going down without kicking and screaming. Okay, so I think he's actually sabotaging Kamala Harris's campaign because the guy is pissed. He's like, what? You guys booted me out after 40 plus years of dedicated my life to politics, and you guys booted me out this way, and you threatened to invoke the 25th Amendment. So I'm going to go down kicking and screaming. And Joe Biden is not letting Kamala Harris separate herself from this administration. So I'm going to get to that. Plus, there's a transgender pastor. Yes. This transgender pastor says that the Bible is actually outdated because God says he only created man and woman, and it's actually outdated, the Bible. Okay. We'll get to all of that here on Conservative Cat. As always, I'm live, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Rumble. You guys can find me there on my social media platforms. You can subscribe to the channel today. You can also text me if you want to interact with the show at 309-451-9299. Let's get into it. Things have gotten really bad, even if now that we have Trump's biggest haters saying that they're going to vote for him. It's pretty bad when we've got Trump haters, anti-Trumpers coming out and saying, oh yeah, I'm going to go vote for this guy. They know who the real threat to democracy is. Even some anti-Trumpers are starting to say, and getting Joe Biden out of there and trying to invoke the 25th Amendment, threatening to invoke the 25th Amendment against a candidate who received 14 million votes, and threatening a candidate and then installing Kamala Harris as the nominee. That seems like a bigger threat to democracy than what Donald Trump did, which was just say, go peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard on January 6th. Okay. So look, folks, if Donald Trump wanted an insurrection, if he actually incited an insurrection, it wouldn't have been a bunch of guys in silly hats being escorted into the Capitol by Capitol Police. Okay, if Trump called and actually incited an insurrection, the guy, even back in 2020, had crazy support. Okay, millions of people showing up to his rallies. I mean, it looks at hundreds of thousands of people showing up to his rallies. If he called for an insurrection, I kind of think that there would have been one. Okay, obviously he didn't call for an insurrection. He didn't incite an insurrection because it was just a bunch of guys in silly hats and a bunch of tourist type people walking into the Capitol and taking pictures on their cell phones. Okay, so this was not an insurrection. If Trump wanted there to be one, I bet there would be one. So this MSNBC guy, his name is Ari Melber. He invited Gordon Sondland onto his show to do what they do best. Usually it's to talk crap about Donald Trump. However, things took a turn, And Sondland, the guy, Gordon, he started describing how badly the Biden-Harris administration, the Biden-Harris team, have done at their jobs. Goes, quote, he started describing how badly the Biden-Harris team have prosecuted their jobs. So the anti-Trumper, Gordon Sondland, once said he'd never vote for Donald Trump after January 6th. However, his mom never told him to say never, right? Never say never. Okay. And now he's got to eat his own words here. He said he was never going to vote for Donald Trump, but now he's coming out and he's saying, hey, yeah, I am going to vote for Donald Trump. Why? Because only a lunatic at this point would vote for the current administration after what has been done over the past several years. Okay, only a lunatic would vote for the current administration. That's why Kamala Harris has been campaigning against herself, essentially, and trying to distance herself from the administration, from Joe Biden. Let's take a listen here to MSNBC, this host losing his mind. This is Ari Melber and Gordon Sondland on the show.
A no for you after that. Why was it important for you to say no more Trump because of his January 6th conduct? And do you stand by that?
No, I don't stand by it, and I'll tell you why. I've now lived 4 years under the Biden-Harris policies, and I have to say that those policies are not only becoming an existential threat to our country's way of life, but to our allies as well.
So when you, I'll let you finish, but this is so striking. You said it was a no for me after that, after January 6th.
I did.
And here we are right now.
I did.
And you're saying it's a yes for you.
It is a yes for me. It is an absolute yes for me. That is how badly the Biden-Harris team have prosecuted their job.
But the whole point you seem to be making was that January 6th and that kind of attack on democracy is bigger than any policy.
I am seeing so many attacks on democracy that eclipse January 6th.
So I want to ask Sarah,
if you want to ask me what those are, I'm happy.
If you want to ask me what those are, of course, this MSNBC host is not going to ask him what those threats to democracy are. I mean, come on. They've shot at the president not once, but twice. Okay. Threat to democracy is their very rhetoric saying threat to democracy, threat to democracy, threat to democracy is a threat to democracy because it's making Trump a target. So according to Fox News, Gordon said, no, I don't stand by it. I don't stand by what I had said about never voting for Donald Trump after January 6th, and I'll tell you why. I've lived 4 years under the Biden-Harris policies, and I have to say that those policies are not only becoming an existential threat to our country's way of life, but to our allies' way of life as well. Yes, the entire world is in chaos. Iran is bombing Israel. You've got Ukraine, Russia. This war just won't end. This is an endless war. The host loudly interrupts Gordon and begins shouting, as you saw him losing his mind because he's a lunatic and only a lunatic would vote for the current administration. He goes, I'm not going to let you finish, I'm going to let you finish, but this is striking. This is striking. This is striking. You said it was a no for me after January 6th. Then here you are right now saying it's a yes for you. The fact that MSNBC still thinks that January 6th is a winning campaign strategy proves how out of touch they are with the American people. The American people get it. It was a bunch of guys with funny hats, and they were escorted in by Capitol Police, and things got out of hand only after the Capitol Police started the offense. They were defending themselves, the January 6ers, okay? That was defense against the Capitol Police, who let them into the building. And then you've got the January 6ers in funny hats taking pictures, like they're tourists. They're staying within the ropes. They weren't even leaving the ropes there that were roped off. They weren't climbing the walls. Really, I think that Ashley Babbitt, she was trying to exit the Capitol. She was just within the crowd there, and she was crawling through this broken doorway, and she was crawling through, and then she got shot at point blank range. I mean, come on. Everybody sees this for what it is. So Gordon, he says, it's a yes for me. It's an absolute yes for me. That's how badly the Biden-Harris team have prosecuted their job. The funny thing is that the Democrats have created one of the most undemocratic elections in American history under the guise of protecting democracy. Okay. And the voters, they're seeing right through that. They're seeing right through this because this has never happened before, where you have a candidate who's never run an election. She's never received any vote. She's so unlikable, she had to bow out of her race in 2020, in the 2020 primary. And Gordon, he says, I'm seeing so many attacks on democracy that eclipse January 6th. And he was encouraging Ari here, the MSNBCer, to ask him what those were. So, yeah, I mean, this is earlier on the same panel, on this MSNBC panel, he had voiced his concerns about a future scenario. If the Democrats were able to impose their desired program over the next several years, there would be massive voting irregularities. So the Democrats, they don't want anything like voter ID. They want mail-in ballots forever. They want to extend the election to where, you just keep voting and there's going to be all kinds of massive voting irregularities. Okay. Later, he said, policy matters greatly because policy translates to our way of life and the way our country operates. That's what Gordon said. This anti-Trumper who said he'd never vote for Donald Trump after January 6th. And while he argued that Trump's conduct around January 6th was not an exemplary thing, there are bigger concerns facing the American electorate. If we allow Kamala Harris into the office, we're going to see massive voting irregularities. We will not have any more elections. They will not be conducted. And they're just going to make it a process where it's unrecognizable. You don't even, and it used to be election day, right? I mean, what's so hard about paper ballots, election day? Let's make it a federal holiday. Let's make sure everybody has the day off. I mean, what's so hard about that? I don't understand it. So the fact that MSNBC thinks not putting food on the table or deciding between groceries and electricity, which is what you're faced with every single day. Should I get this for groceries? Should I pay the electric bill today? MSNBC thinks that's far less important than what happened on January 6th. When I told you what happened on January 6th, the only person who died that day was a Trump supporter, Ashley Babbitt. She was crawling through a window trying to get out of the Capitol, I'd imagine, or at least get through the crowd. There were plenty of people going through this broken doorway inside the Capitol, and she crawled through it. She was shot at point blank range. They were trying to defend themselves. The Capitol Police were engaging them outside, shooting rubber bullets in their faces, gassing them. And they became violent prior to the January 6ers becoming violent. Okay, so they were defending themselves, but also you had Capitol Police ushering in J6ers. And the J6ers, they had their cameras out. They were taking pictures of the Capitol. This was not an insurrection. Like I said, if Donald Trump had actually incited an insurrection, there would have been one. Okay. That's how much support Donald Trump has got. There would have been one. There were thousands of people there that day. And he goes, this is what Gordon says. I want to express what I want to express is that I have now lived 4 years under the Biden-Harris administration. He goes, I live in Portland, Oregon, and it has been destroyed by their policies, absolutely decimated. Businesses are suffering. My own business is suffering solely for political reasons. It's all fixable, and they don't want to fix it, right? They refuse to fix it. Kamala Harris is out there campaigning. She's, campaigning against her own record. I mean, fix your record then, so you don't have to campaign against it. The Democrats could care less about being morally correct at the expense of your prosperity, so long as they can claim they're politically correct. And the fact that the left thinks that they are the compassionate ones while Americans suffer is proof of how much they despise the very people they pretend to represent. Okay, they think they could care less about being morally correct at the expense of your prosperity. They could fix it, but they don't. Okay, they could fix it, but they don't. All right, I do have to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. We'll be right back. I so do appreciate you guys tuning in each and every single morning. Like I said, Democrats don't care about being morally correct at the expense of your prosperity, so long as they can claim that they're politically correct. Okay. Let's just say January 6th. I mean, it was politically incorrect, I guess, where you've got people walking into the Capitol and they shouldn't have done that, right? And they were trespassing. At most, it was politically incorrect of them to walk into the Capitol. But I would even make the argument that, you had Capitol Police ushering them in. The moral thing here, the moral thing to make sure that Americans don't suffer and that businesses don't suffer and that people don't have to choose between groceries and electricity is to vote the Democrats out. That's the moral thing to do. Democrats morally should fix their policies so that way Americans can be prosperous, but they don't want to do that. They don't want to do that. They're not compassionate. They are not the compassionate ones. Americans are suffering, and that's proof how much they actually despise the people they're supposed to represent, or at least pretend to represent. So we are going to get to North Carolina and the hurricane. People are saying that this is more deadly than Hurricane Katrina. I don't know about that. I've seen different numbers. I know it's up to 215 was the latest death toll number across 6 states that I've seen. Some people are saying it's more deadly than Hurricane Katrina. I've looked at Hurricane Katrina's death toll fatalities, and it was like 1,000. So I don't know where people are getting that from. Maybe it's 1,000 across the. I think it might have been bigger Hurricane Katrina, and it stretched across more states than just the 6 states that we're looking at today with Hurricane Helene. But either way, this is extremely deadly, and it's tragedy. And Kamala Harris is nowhere to be found. Actually, she was on this disgusting podcast, and if you've ever seen it, I think it's called Call Her Daddy or something like that. It's a podcast about women's sexual preferences and what they like in bed. No, quite literally, Kamala Harris was featured on this podcast at the height of the destruction, and after Hurricane Helene passes through, it was after a couple of days of that hurricane passing through, and they're dealing with the damage. They're sifting through the memories of their life there on the ground in North Carolina. You've got the sitting president or vice president. I say president because she's de facto president. We know Joe Biden isn't running thing. Joe Biden is going to tell us how closely aligned she is with Joe Biden and this administration. He's not letting her back away from the administration and campaign against the administration. He's going to hold her to the fire here, her feet to the fire, and I think he's actually trying to sabotage her campaign. He's peeved. He's peeved off. He's dementia riddled. But one thing Joe Biden probably still understands is that politics is his life. And the only reason why he's out of it is because they threatened to invoke the 25th Amendment against him. And they said, hey, we can do this the hard way or we can do this the easy way. And Joe Biden chose the easy way. And he's not going down without kicking and screaming. So I think he's actually trying to sabotage Kamala Harris's campaign here by saying, hey, she's like right there with me. We sing from the same song sheet is what he said, direct quote. We're going to get to that here in just a second. But like I said, she was on this Call Her Daddy podcast, which is like a podcast about women's sexual preferences. So she was on that podcast during the devastation and them sifting through their lives currently. And now this destruction, this disaster is going to stretch for years to come because people lost their livestock, people lost their businesses, people lost roads. I mean, this is going to be years and years of trying to rebuild those communities, which is really sad. I love North Carolina. I have friends and family in South Carolina. And Chimney Rock was one of my favorite vacation destinations, and it's been completely wiped out. There was like cute little barbecue joint there and just like very touristy, there in the mountains. And that's been completely wiped out. So you think about the tourism dollars that they're losing out on. You think about the livestock and the food and everything. This is going to devastate not only those southeast states, the 6 states that were affected by the hurricane, but it's going to affect everybody else as well around the country. So we're going to get to so much today. I do want to get to this transgender pastor who says that the Bible is outdated. Yes. I know. We've got a lot to cover today. Smash that like button. Share this out with your friends. It's very important that we get this out to the masses. I'm going to take a quick break, get a little more coffee, and we'll be right back in just a couple of minutes. Woohoo! Is he trying to sabotage her campaign? Is that what Joe Biden is doing here? Well, let's get into it. I'm excited to chat about that. He actually says, quote, "We sing from the same song sheet." So Joe Biden, for background, he was forced out of running for re-election in the 2024 race after top Democrats like Obama, Clinton, they had threatened to invoke the 25th Amendment against him. And they said, "Hey, Joe, we can do this the hard way or the easy way." He chose the easy way. He chose to bow out for Kamala Harris. But I don't think Joe Biden is going to go down without a fight. I think that he's going to go down kicking and screaming and, doing like little things to sabotage her campaign because he's salty about it, which I totally understand. You run in a primary, you get 14 million votes. Now, there was no way Joe Biden was going to win against Donald Trump. And I've given this analogy before. You've got a guy running in a marathon. He's winning the race, right? The guy coming in second, he's about a mile behind you. Okay. And then all of a sudden, the opposing team goes ahead and they replace the guy coming in second with a brand new person who hasn't run any of the marathon. Of course, that's unfair. That's cheating. So Joe Biden, he's pretty salty about this. And I think he's actually trying to sabotage her campaign. We're going to get to that. Plus, a transgender pastor is saying that the Bible is outdated. Wrong. Morality, morals, they do not change over time. I hate to say this, but it's true. Transgender Lutheran pastors pretending that the Bible is outdated, as if morality is something that changes with the times. Morality is not something that changes with the times or adapts as time goes on. There's objectively wrong things, and that's not a bad thing to say. There's objectively wrong things, and they've been wrong for all of human history. Things like murder, things like stealing, right? So morality does not change with the times. We're going to get to that transgender Lutheran pastor here in just a minute, but I want to get to Sleepy Joe Biden and how he is actually sabotaging Kamala Harris's campaign, which is kind of funny. The thing is that we talked about it in the previous segment that she's campaigning against her own record. Notice how she never talks about her experience as vice president, right? She never talks about her experience as vice president, but rather she talks about her time as AG, attorney general, a prosecutor, her time in California as a senator. She talks about all of that, but she does not talk about her role as the vice president, her current role as the vice president ever. So she campaigns against her own record, and she's got a lot of nerve claiming that she's going to fix the mess that she created. Okay, so this is the left trying to get you to pretend that she is not the de facto president. She's the sitting vice president, but I say that she's the president because, I mean, look at Joe Biden, right? Look at him. He's dementia. He's got dementia. He's not doing well. He spends most of his time on the beach, okay, reading a good book with Jill. Okay, so the actual president, though, is reminding the masses who is really in charge, and that is Kamala Harris. And this is Joe Biden reminding us that, yeah, no, Kamala Harris is in charge. Take a listen.
There have obviously been a number of crises that the country has been facing over the past several days with the hurricane, with port strike, with the situation in the Middle East. Can you talk about how your vice president, who is running for the presidency, has worked on these crises and what role she has played over the past several days?
Well, I'm in constant contact with her. She's aware we're singing from the same song sheet. She helped pass all the laws that are being employed now. She was a major player in everything we've done, including passage of legislation which we were told we could never pass. And so she's been, and her staff is interlocked with mine in terms of all the things we're doing.
There have obviously been.
Wow. Okay, so he's reminding you who is actually in charge. That's Kamala Harris. And as Scott Jennings said, he goes, quote, he's literally trying to destroy her campaign, and it's just incredible. So unclear if Scott Jennings' interpretation is correct. I think that he's trying to sabotage. I mean, you can kind of see that on the smirk on his face. He's trying to sabotage Kamala Harris's campaign here, and I don't blame him. I'd be pretty peeved off if they were like, you can go about this the easy way or the hard way, Joe. And, you know, I could only imagine Joe or Barack Obama talking to Joe Biden, threatening him with invoking the 25th Amendment. But like I said, unclear if that interpretation is correct, that he's actually trying to sabotage Kamala Harris. It's unknown if he was just having a senior moment here and he really despises, or if he really despises Kamala Harris that much that he wants to see her lose. I don't know which one it is. If he was having a senior moment or if he actually wants Kamala Harris to lose and he won't let her distance herself from this administration. But I think he was telling the truth here. Really, I just think he's telling the truth. He goes, yeah, Kamala Harris, she and I sing from the same song sheet. Either way, I'm here for it. Love that Joe Biden is sticking up for himself and saying, hey, you know what? No, she is just as much as she is a part of this disaster, and we are not going to let her get away with it. But I do want to play this. This is actually absolutely incredible. You know, I don't know who let Sleepy Joe stay up past his bedtime, but he was at this White House press briefing. Now, it's weird that Joe Biden is giving more press conferences than Kamala Harris, especially considering this guy's got dementia. But this is really crazy to watch. He's at this press briefing. You're going to hear the press bark questions at him, which is very, very normal, where you've got the press, especially after a disaster like Hurricane Helene, just killing people in 6 different states. You're going to have the press barking at you. He is stunned. He freezes when he's asked all of these questions. This is really hard to watch.
All right, go ahead. And Nandita, sir, no, sir. I didn't call on you, sir. I didn't call on you, Nandita. Thank you, Nandita. Go.
So he freezes. Okay, it's embarrassing that the leader of the free world froze in the middle of a press conference, and it's even more embarrassing. I'll say this: it's more embarrassing that we've got Kamala Harris not out there giving press conferences, giving interviews. We've got the guy who literally has dementia, and he's not afraid to make a fool of himself. Okay, this old man has no shame. He's willing to go out there and he's willing to freeze like that in a press conference. I get that they were barking questions at him, and what he was supposed to do was call on somebody. Kamala Harris, Kieran Jean-Pierre, she says to Joe Biden, "It's up to you, Mr. President." You can hear it in that clip there. It's up to you, Mr. President, who you want to call on. And he doesn't call on anybody. He just is frozen frozen. And then she eventually, Kieran Jean-Pierre, she has to jump in and save him. So Kamala Harris, she's not doing much of anything, like giving press conference. She is getting on podcasts, and I was telling the streamers about this, those of you on YouTube, and she was on a podcast called Call Her Daddy, which is a disgusting podcast. If you listen to it, it's really just gross. It's about women's sexual preferences. And Kamala Harris was on that podcast just days after Hurricane Helene just killed and totally devastated people in 6 different states. So instead of being there on the ground and helping people as sitting vice president, as somebody who's running for the presidency, she decided to go on this podcast instead of helping the Hurricane Helene victims. So like I said, she's not doing much of anything. She's pretending to run for president. She's really not doing much of that. All right, I got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. I'll be right back. Good morning, folks. So do appreciate you tuning in each and every single day. We will be back. Joe Biden actually forgot the name of the storm, or forgot what storm happened. He forgot totally last week on Thursday. Okay. He forgot about Hurricane Helene. He didn't know what storm the press was talking about, which is truly an incredible clip. I've played this a couple of times on the show. I've got to play it again coming up in just about 5 minutes. But Trump didn't forget. Elon Musk didn't forget about the storm. They're out there on the ground. And I am going to get to how their FEMA is on the ground trying to stop Elon's Starlink terminals. So I guess this is like little terminals. They provide internet, and they're trying to get them into the Hurricane Helene victims so that way they can have communication with the outside world, right? Because there's internet towers down. There's all kinds of things going on in these 6 states that were affected by Hurricane Helene, and they're trying to get the resources to these victims, and FEMA is intercepting them and taking them away from the victims. No, quite literally, that's what's happening. Trump has not forgotten about the storm, unlike Joe Biden. Joe Biden couldn't even remember the name of the storm or, what this reporter was talking about when he was asked about, hey, what do the people on the ground in these 6 states need? That's what the reporter was asking Joe Biden, and he goes, what storm? He had no idea what this reporter was talking about. So he's got dementia. Kamala Harris was campaigning, of course, in California, trying to get donors to donate to her campaign during instead of visiting the storm victims and during this, aftermath of Hurricane Helene. She was there campaigning in California. She was also on that podcast, Call Her Daddy, which is quite literally a women's sex podcast, which is just so gross. Everything is a joke to this woman. And, people are still waiting for help. And their victims have been stranded for what now? A couple of weeks? This is getting ridiculous. Go ahead, smash that like button and share this out with your friends. I do want to get to this. Jews are living proof that the Bible is true. Yes, we are going to be getting to a transgender pastor who says that the Bible is not true, that it's outdated, and that we shouldn't listen to it. This is a Lutheran pastor who actually has a congregation, actually has a church and ministers to people. He says that the Bible isn't true and that it's outdated. Okay. Yeah, well, all I've got to say is that there's scripture that contradicts that exactly. Isaiah 48, chapter 40, verse 8. I'm going to throw that into the comment section here. Here's what it says. The grass withers, the flowers fade, but the word of our God stands forever. Okay, so what the word says is forever. The earth will pass away. That's not, fiction, that's fact. The earth will pass away, and all that will stand and all that will stay is the word of our God. So This he, she, they is clearly lost. I think everybody should pray for this pastor, this Lutheran pastor, the transgender Lutheran pastor. He clearly doesn't understand the Bible, and he demands that you affirm his delusion at the expense of truth. That's all I can really say about that, But we're going to play a clip of him saying that the Bible is outdated. I think that's, just because the gender bender crowd woke up one day and decided that biology isn't a thing, that doesn't make it true. Okay. Biology is a thing. And just because you don't want to accept the truth that there is two genders, man, woman, that's on you. That's not on me to accept or to affirm your delusion. Okay, the truth is the truth. The truth is the truth. So we are going to get to Isaiah 40, verse 8. And I like what you say here. The Jews are living proof that the Bible is true. Yeah. What's going on in Israel is very it proves that the Bible is true. It's a family feud. I've got a pastor. His name is Pastor Timothy James Farrell at the Tabernacle. He has talked extensively about this, so I'm attributing this information to him. And of course, the Bible, right? If you read through, Genesis, read through Sarah and Abraham's story and Hagar, right? Where Abraham is supposed to have a child with Sarah. They try to go around God's plans for them to have a child together, and they use a surrogate woman. Her name is Hagar. And Hagar births a child who winds up producing the Islam or Muslim lineage, right? And then eventually Sarah and Abraham, they have a child, and that produces the Jewish lineage where Jesus comes from. So yeah, Jews are living proof that the Bible is true. I love that. Thanks, Brian. Woohoo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. I do want to play this clip. This is really important. Joe Biden, he forgot about Hurricane Helene. He had no idea what this reporter was talking about last week on Thursday. I want to play it one more time because it's crucial that you understand that your sitting president is not the sitting president and that Kamala Harris is de facto the president. This guy didn't even know that there was a storm going on. Take a listen.
What do the states of the storm zone need, Mr. President? Okay. What do the states of the storm zone, what do they need after what you saw today?
Oh, in the storm zone?
Yes, sir.
I'm wondering what storm you're talking about. They're getting everything they need. They're very happy across the board.
They're very happy across the board. Now, I don't know about you, but I would say that the victims of Hurricane Helene are very happy right now. He goes, they've got everything they need. They're very happy. What? Donald Trump didn't forget, though. No. Donald Trump was out there and he said it's a bad storm, maybe the worst. He's on the ground in Georgia trying to see what he can do. He's secured Starlink terminals. This is internet for people with Elon Musk. I will get to that here at the top of the hour. Elon Musk, his Starlink terminals have been intercepted by FEMA. FEMA is not distributing them. I don't know why that is. I can't even begin to fathom why they would do something like that. They're preventing people from having internet in those 6 states that were devastated by the storm. Take a listen. Here's Trump. He's got some brief comments, but he's on the ground in Georgia trying to figure out what he can do.
County, you see Governor Brian Kemp there in the background. Let's actually listen to the former president.
It's maybe the worst. Thank you, sir.
Brief remarks there from former President Donald Trump. He was describing the damage from Hurricane Helene as he's shaking hands with folks on the ground there. Not the first stop for former President Trump in the Southeast since this hurricane swept through, killing at least 120 plus people. We're going to monitor this sit down between former President Trump and the governor of Georgia. And of course, we'll bring you the headline.
All right. So there's Donald Trump. And he said it's a bad storm. He goes, it's the worst storm we've probably seen. So Kamala Harris, while while Trump is there sitting with the governor trying to figure out securing Starlink terminals, he's actually set up a donation. He's set up a donation, like GoFundMe-esque service for people to go donate. $4 million this guy has raised. He's used his own money to provide aid to those in these states that have been affected. Meanwhile, you've got Kamala Harris far outpacing Donald Trump when it comes to donations. Okay, so I forget how much is in her war chest. I want to say it's close to $7 million. Not a single cent has gone to the hurricane victims. Donald Trump is out there raising money for the hurricane victims, and then Kamala Harris has not given a single cent of her campaign funds to the victims at all. So everything is a joke to this woman. I do want to share this really quickly. While Trump was visiting the storm victims, you've got Kamala Harris here, doing this.
Concepts of a plan. He has concepts of a plan. Come on.
All right, she's out there laughing. Okay, and these people are still waiting for help. These victims have been stranded for a couple of weeks. Shouldn't she be doing everything in her power, especially considering she's the sitting vice president, to help them? And I don't even think she's pretending to care. I mean, the least she could do, the very least, is pretend that she cares instead of going on podcasts about women's sexual preferences. Maybe she should, I don't know, be on the ground there and pretend to care. As Sleepy Joe said, Kamala is everything Joe Biden is and more. Joe Biden said that they sing from the same song sheet, and he's not letting her distance himself or herself from the administration. Subsequently, the worst thing than the status quo, the worst thing than Joe Biden is Kamala Harris if she's selected as the next president of the United States. All right, I got to take a quick break, but you are listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. I'll be right back. Hey, good morning. Thanks so much for tuning in. And if you're watching, go ahead and smash that like button. That really helps me out. Also share this out with your normie friends. As Brian was saying, the Jews are living proof that the Bible is true. Yes. I love that statement. That's so true. If you were to just read a little bit of Genesis, you would know that the entire Jewish ethnicity and the lineage comes from Sarah and Abraham. Right. And that lineage, God promised them that land. And then he also promised that Jesus would come out of that lineage as well, the Jewish lineage. And the Islam ethnicity, the Islamic ethnicity, that is proof also that the Bible is true, because with Abraham and Hagar, they tried to use a surrogate to have a child. And from that, that child, Ishmael. Okay, so Isaac, Ishmael, and Emmanuel, right? Emmanuel comes from the lineage of Isaac, and you've got Ishmael over here, and you've got the Muslim faith walking itself over here on this side of the family tree. Okay, so it's really just a big family feud. Okay, what's going on in Israel and with the Islamic nations that surround Israel and that have been traditionally adversarial with that country. I'm a Christian Zionist. What that means? What does Zionism mean? Zionism is just the belief that Israel should exist and should continue to exist as a Jewish state, and that the Jewish people are promised that land. Okay, that they should be on that land. That's all Zionism is that you believe that Israel should exist as a Jewish state. And they try to demonize you for being a Zionist, and they say, oh, that's a bad word, Zionism. I'm a Christian Zionist. I believe that the Jews should be able to have the land of Israel. So anyway, I'm bringing up the Bible here because we're bringing up this transgender Lutheran pastor who's pretending that the Bible is outdated, as if morality is something that changes with time. Morality is not something that changes with time. There are objectively wrong things in the world, and they've been wrong for all of human history. Things like murder, things like stealing. Just because people may not have lived by certain moral laws, that does not change the inherent value or morality of things. Okay. This is how we also know cultural relativism is a lie. I'm going to get to that here in just a second. What is cultural relativism? That's next. Woohoo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Lots to unpack here with this transgender Lutheran pastor who is saying that the Bible is outdated. Okay. Just because the gender bender crowd woke up one morning and said, you know what, biology isn't a thing, it doesn't make it true. Okay, biology is the thing, and the truth is hard for some people to accept, which is why this transgender Lutheran pastor is pretending that the Bible is outdated. No, morality is not something that changes with time. Now, at certain points in history, some populations of people, some people in certain points of history, they follow some moral laws, and then they don't follow others. But just because people may not have lived by certain moral laws does not change the inherent value or the morality of things. Okay, there have been things that are objectively wrong. Mutilating children, objectively wrong. Chopping children up, objectively wrong. Objectively, there are two genders or two sexes. Gender isn't even really a word. There are two sexes. So we're going to unpack what this transgender Lutheran pastor says, because he's saying the Bible changes, and that that morality changes, and that the Bible is outdated. So we're going to unpack that here. Also, at the top of the hour, I do want to talk about Elon Musk saying that his blood is boiling after FEMA is not allowing critical supplies to get to the hurricane victims. Elon Musk has been with Trump trying to get Starlink terminals, these are internet terminals over to the hurricane victims in these six states that have been devastated by Hurricane Helene. I want to talk about that. I also need to tell you a little bit about the solar panels that are coming to Illinois. It's a 3,600-acre solar plant, and it's expected to arrive in Custer Park, Illinois, which is actually my hometown. So I will be chatting a little bit about that. The largest solar plant in Illinois is 4,100 acres. So this is a ginormous solar plant. I've got to tell you a little bit more about that at the top of the hour. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. We'll be right back. Okay. Good morning. Hey, so do appreciate you tuning in each and every single morning. Go ahead, smash that like button. We are going to be talking about some solar plants. On the other side, we're going to be talking about the transgender pastor. We're also going to be talking about Elon Musk saying that his blood is boiling over the fact that FEMA is intercepting this very critical supplies that these hurricane victims need. So we're going to be chatting a little bit about all of that. I threw this up in the chat. Be sure to text me, be a part of the show, and message me in the comment section. So Isaiah 40 verse 8 says that, yes, the grass is going to wither, the flowers are going to fade, but the word of our God stays the same, and it stands forever. So the Bible, it's not outdated. It's going to stand forever. What it says is true. And for this pastor to disagree and say that the Bible isn't true, and that it's outdated. It's just gross. It's so sad. There's a lot to unpack there. Now, I do want to ask you this about your communities. Do you have a solar plant in your community? And what do you think about solar plants? I'm being very deliberate with my words here. They're not solar farms. Okay, they're solar plants. Why do I say that? Because you have to rezone the property to quite literally be industrial for industrial use. And it's not, you can't keep it zoned as agricultural. Okay, so quite literally, it's not a farm by the very definition of the word zoning, right? If it was zoned agricultural and you were actually creating something and farming something, you're not farming solar, you're producing solar. It's a plant. It's a power plant. Okay. So it really pisses me off when people call these things solar farms. I'm being very deliberate in my words and calling it a solar plant. So this 3,600 acre solar plant is expected to arrive in Custer Park, Illinois, which is just north of Bloomington Normal. The largest solar plant in Illinois is 4,100 acres. This one's going to be 3,600 acres. So some Illinois landowners offered to lease their land to this company. It's called Asonia, which is a Spanish multinational renewable energy conglomerate. This is a tale as old as time. If you have solar panels in your community, likely these energy plants, these solar energy plants, behind them are foreign energy conglomerates, renewable energy conglomerates, where they use things like wind and solar and electric vehicles. Asonia, they are a multinational. I think they're based out of Spain, but I mean, there's just so much that they do, and they're like in every part of the world. This is a ginormous company. Okay, so Asonia. So I talked with the Will County board member there, and she actually voted to table this project. So it could come back possibly after the November election. I bet they think that they're going to be able to bring this back. And if they win some Democrat seats, this is an 11-11 split on their board. Very similar makeup to the McLean County board. Right now, I think it's like a split. Now, after this election, it could change where you've got 10-9, and it's not going to be that split. And that's going to be very, very crucial that McLean County secures at least the split. If they're not going to flip the seats, they got to secure the split and make sure that there is not a Democrat majority on the county board. Because you're going to wind up with solar plants everywhere surrounding Bloomington Normal, and it's going to be kind of tragic for McLean County. They shoved things through the Democrats, and you will not recognize McLean County if there is a Democrat majority on that board. I do want to talk about Will County, though. Their makeup is very similar to that of McLean County, so they have some really real problems. For example, the solar plant, if that election does not go the way that they think it's going to go, and if they wind up with a Democrat majority, then they're in trouble. They're going to wind up with this solar plant, okay, because they're split right now, and they don't have the votes, okay, to get this thing passed, the solar plant. Now, after the election, if they bring it up after the election, Asonia may come back later after the election, and unfortunately, they might lose that split. The county executive breaks that tie that they have even, and she'll go with the proponents of the plant. I mean, this is gonna it's probably a done deal. I don't know. It's worth fighting because this is a 3,600 acre solar plant, and not only are locals upset about this, but federal officials. Mary Miller has talked about how you've got all these solar plants everywhere, you've got all these wind plants everywhere, and you're taking away precious farmland. You're giving it over to adversaries. You're giving it over to foreign entities. And unfortunately, that's going to devastate our ability to feed America. Illinois feeds America. And when you take away precious farmland and you put a bunch of solar panels on top of it, you are going to take away people's ability to farm that land and produce food. So we're going to get to all of that here coming up. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's really huge, guys. If you subscribe, I would be forever grateful. But yes, we're going to get back to the transgender pastor now. Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. So glad you are here this morning, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. It's a daily show, Monday through Friday. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's huge, crucial. Go ahead, subscribe. You get all kinds of content, extra content outside of the daily show. So you can head over to Conservative Cat, the Conservative Cat Show. Type it in your search bar on YouTube. I do want to get to this story. It's about this gender bender Lutheran pastor. We're going to get to this story, but we're also going to talk about this solar plant that's coming to Custer Park, Illinois, which is actually my hometown. It's about an hour away from Bloomington Normal, but it's 3,600 acres. That's a huge, huge solar plant. And I'm being very deliberate with my words here. It's not a solar farm. It's a solar plant. Quite literally, you have to rezone these areas if you're going to put solar panels on top of precious farmland. You have to rezone it and designate it as like industrial or the industrial, not agricultural. So it is not a farm. It really peeves me off when people refer to wind farms as wind farms and solar farms as solar farms. And no, they're plants. They're producing energy. They're a power plant. Okay. So I want to be very deliberate with my words when I talk about this story coming to Illinois. Not to mention, the solar, the energy that's produced there, not going to the residents. Probably going to go to Amazon, a company that could care less about you. So this is happening around the state. Federal officials, Mary Miller has talked about, how we have foreign entities, foreign adversaries, even China. They're buying up precious farmland. Landowners are leasing out their precious farmland for us to make food and feed America. They're selling out. They're more concerned with the green, and I'm not meaning green energy. I'm talking about green as in money. They're more concerned about that. And I get it. Life is expensive, but don't sell your precious farmland. I think, and I come from a family of farmers, that farmers, if they decide to take on this occupation of farming, they have an obligation to feed America and to not sell out their precious farmland. And I think that they have an obligation to not sell out and be Americans and actually say what we're going to do in the first place, which is feed America. So we're going to chat a little bit about this solar plant because it's very important. And we're also going to talk about Elon Musk. He says that his blood is boiling because FEMA is intercepting and taking away all of the precious resources that they're trying to get to the hurricane victims. FEMA, they're taking away the Starlink terminals and they're not giving them to the hurricane victims. And Elon says his blood is boiling. Mine too, pal. All right. Let's talk about this transgender pastor, shall we? So one morning, the gender bender crowd, they woke up and they decided that biology wasn't a thing and that men aren't men, women aren't women. And just because you woke up one day and you think that, it doesn't make it true. Okay, the truth is hard for people to accept. I understand that, which is why this Lutheran pastor, transgender Lutheran pastor, is pretending that the Bible is outdated. Okay, he's pretending that the Bible is outdated as if morality is something that changes over time. It is not moral to change the body parts of children and to mutilate them. This is objectively wrong, but that doesn't stop this guy from trying to say that the Bible is outdated, and he tries to pretend like morality is something that adapts as time goes on, which is just not true. But let's take a look.
There are a lot of people who say that according to the Bible, God made man and woman, and that couldn't be more clearly defined. How do you respond to them?
It's hard to relate it to modern day times because it wasn't written for 2024. It was written for then. When we read in the scripture that God created man and woman, yes, and God created everyone else as well.
Wow. Gosh, lots to unpack there. Firstly, morality, like I said, is not something that changes over time. It's moral. It is a moral thing. It's immoral to say that there are other genders outside of man and woman. You are confusing the majority of people when you say things like there are multiple genders. Okay, you're doing a disservice to your community, and it's immoral to say things like, oh, there are multiple genders. Morality is something that does not change. Okay, it does not adapt with the times. If something is objectively wrong now, it has been wrong for all of human history. Okay, so murder, for example, objectively wrong for all of human history. Saying that there's multiple genders, objectively wrong for all of human history. The truth never changes. The truth is the truth. Okay. And this is also why cultural relativism, and this is something that the left likes to talk about, it's a lie, cultural relativism. Morality does not change depending on the people or the region. Okay, so for example, I provided you a story a few months back about Canada. So there's a big problem in Canada with people publicly defecating, pooping on the beach and covering it up with the sand. I think morally we can all agree that that's not a good thing. Kids are playing out on the beach, and you've got Canadians all up in arms about this. And they're like, all of these illegal immigrants who have come here, they bring their culture with them. Okay, they're bringing their this culture of pooping in public in front of everybody. Morally, that's objectively, I think we can all objectively say that, hey, that's not right. Public indecency, exposure of your naked body, right? And this is all principles we get from the Bible, right? That's why Adam and Eve clothed themselves. Public indecency, public nudity, things like that. We can all objectively agree that that is immoral. And it doesn't change based on where you're at or the people or the types of people. It doesn't change on the people or the region. Okay, morals don't change. A group can think they're acting righteous even when they're not. Say, for example, in Middle Eastern countries, they think it's righteous to, have women beaten if they show a little bit of ankle, right? Or if they show their face, if they don't wear their burqa or their hijab, right? And I understand that it's accepted over in that part of the country or over in that part of the world, that region, and with those people, a group can think they're acting righteous, but they're not. Okay, beating women, probably objectively immoral. Okay, so secondly, this transgender individual if transgender is factually correct, then it would have also been true during biblical times. Okay, but gender ideology could not be further from the truth, which is why this transgender Lutheran pastor is trying to label the Bible as mistaken, and he's demanding that you affirm his delusion at the expense of truth. Okay, if transgenderism is factually correct and that there are multiple genders, it would have been true in biblical times. That wasn't true, and he's trying to manipulate you into affirming his delusion. And he doesn't understand the Bible. For a transgender Lutheran pastor, a Lutheran pastor, I don't think he really understands the Bible. CBS, they called this segment Faith in Transition, which is really funny. but it's actually an oxymoron because this guy doesn't have faith in anything. Okay, he's drawn to a fake, ambiguous feeling that he's got that he's never going to really be able to describe because it's simply not true and it's delusional. Okay, he has no faith in anything. He's drawn to an ambiguous feeling. And yeah, this is for someone to claim that he's a pastor and disagree with everything that the Bible says. I just pray for this guy. He's just clearly lost. And I leave you with this, Isaiah 40, verse 8. Okay, it says, the grass withers, the flowers fade, but the word of God stands forever. You know, like I said, it doesn't matter if a group thinks that they're doing something righteous or thinks that they're doing something moral. For example, the Haitian immigrants, right, in Springfield, Ohio. I've talked about this in Leviticus. It talks about, you know, things that you can and can't eat. The Bible remains true, okay, all throughout time. It doesn't change over time. The Bible talks about not eating anything with like split hooves or, yeah, single hooves. You can eat something with a split hoof, but not eating something with a single hoof, like horses, right? Or not eating anything with paws. So cats, dogs, things like that. So we get our morality from the Bible, and the Bible never changes. Morality never changes. And these people just try to change it based on, you know, where they live, or they try to explain morality away as it suits them. And yeah, it's just wrong. So like I said, Isaiah 40, verse 8, look it up. I do want to get to federal and local officials fear foreign-owned solar plant is going to cause some food insecurity. Yes, so federal and local officials are concerned about Illinois' farmland being bought up by foreign nations. This should concern you, especially because you live in Illinois. The largest solar plant here in Illinois is 4,100 acres. I don't know if this is the second largest, but it's pretty dang close, probably. It's a 3,600 acre solar plant. That's a big solar plant. And it's coming to Custer Park, Illinois, which is about an hour from Bloomington Normal. And some Illinois landowners, they have offered up their farm, and they are leasing out that land to Esonia. This is a Spanish multi-renewable energy conglomerate. And you're like, okay, Kat, well, these farm owners, if they're leasing their land, they have private property rights, and they have the ability to do this. Okay, your rights end where my rights begin. Okay, so if you are taking away you know, my precious food supply, or if you are allowing a foreign entity to purchase up or to lease land, that's a threat to my national security. So your rights end where mine begin. Okay, I have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. How can I live if I can't eat? Okay, you're buying up all of this precious farmland. You're selling it out to people who won't farm on it. They're producing energy. So this is a plant. It's not a solar farm. It's a plant. And I talked with a Will County board member who voted to table the project. She talked about how they're probably going to bring it back. Esonia, they're going to come back later. They've tabled it for now, but likely they're going to hold off until the 2024 election is over with. Right now, I don't think that they've got a whole lot of votes. Currently, the 11-11 split on the Will County, they don't have enough votes to really push this over and get this project approved. Now, the county executive breaks the tie in that county. She can side with the proponents. But I think they're going to wait until after the election, and they're going to hope that the Democrats get the majority on the Will County board. Similar to that of McLean County, we likely, after this election, we might wind up with a Democrat majority if you don't go out and vote. So it is split right now. So that's why your county board elections are very crucial, and that you educate yourself about who's on your ballot. With this, Governor J.B. Pritzker, he signed what's called the Climate Equitable Jobs Act into law. And that puts the state forward on a path to 100% alternative energy by 2050, where there is no gas anywhere. And we're all in electric cars, and we're in this la-la land of renewable energy, or so-called renewable energy, so-called green energy. He also signed legislation that protects these energy projects, these solar plants and wind plants. It's called House Bill 4412. He signed it in 2023. And what this does, it prevents counties from enacting ordinances that outright ban local wind and solar projects. So the counties have no say because of House Bill 4412. JB Pritzker, wants us on this path to 2050, all alternative energy. And they're trying right now, the opponents of this solar project, they're trying to lobby their legislators, but it's tough in the state house and in the state senate because there's a super majority. Okay, so they're trying to get this House Bill 4412 amended to where the counties in Illinois actually have a say in these projects, but it's going to be tough because they're up against a super majority. Mary Miller, she has criticized these solar panels. I'm going to get to that here in just a second. I do need to take a quick break, but I'm going to talk about Mary Miller and how she talks about how Chinese foreign entities, they're buying up precious farmland, and it's going to make it so much harder for Illinois to feed America. Okay, it's going to devastate Illinois' ability to feed America. That's what she says in a social media post. We're going to get right to that here in just a minute. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Good morning. Hey, it's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Before I took the break, I was telling you about a solar plant that's planned for Custer Park, Illinois. Now, this is actually my hometown. So when I read about it, I was like, oh, gosh, this is incredible. 3,600 acres. That's how many, how much land is going to be eaten up by these solar panels. Now, Mary Miller, she responded to Governor J.B. Pritzker's social media post criticizing the U.S. House Republicans for holding up a farm bill. They're holding up the farm bill because they're disagreeing, and this is democracy at work, okay? The Democrats and the Republicans, they're disagreeing on how much funding is going to go to food programs like SNAP. Okay, using EBTs, your SNAP card, right? They're arguing about how much funding should go into these types of programs. Okay, so this is democracy. Okay, this is the way Republicans and Democrats, they always fight about this. And Governor J.B. Pritzker went out there and he said, House Republicans are holding the farm bill hostage. Give me a break. This happens every flipping year, and it's healthy for Republicans and Democrats to disagree over things like this. Really, we should, at a time where we're funding multiple wars, we should reevaluate how much funding goes towards these programs. Now, if we stop funding Ukraine, right, and I know Governor J.B. Pritzker is all about that, if we stop funding Ukraine, maybe we'll have enough money for the food programs here in America, like the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, like SNAP cards, EBTs, things like that. Maybe we'd have more if we stopped funding the war in Ukraine, the endless war in Ukraine that they're never going to win. So Mary Miller, in response to Governor J.B. Pritzker, of course, saying that the House Republicans are holding the farm bill hostage, she says, look, you're the guy who's all for Chinese solar panels, okay, covering the entire state of Illinois, and that's devastating Illinois' ability to feed America. You want people to have food, you want, then we need to start producing food, more and more food, and what's prohibiting us from production of food is covering our precious farmland in foreign entity solar panels. So talking with the Will County board member, her name is Katie Schlutelman, and she explained that residents that live near this proposed project in Custer Park, they fear for their food security. Okay, they fear that this land that's being leased to the Spanish multinational renewable conglomerate, they are never going to see that precious land ever again, and they're starting to freak out about food security, right? They talk about these food programs, they talk about food security all of the time, the Democrats, but what they don't understand is where the food comes from. Okay, the food comes from land that farmers farm. And if you allow these projects and promote these projects to be here in Illinois, and you want everybody to be on alternative energy by 2050, he's got the Climate Equitable Jobs Act, and his goal is to get everybody off of gas entirely by 2050. That's Governor J.B. Pritzker's goal. What they don't understand is that's really devastating our ability to create food and to make food. Okay, this whole House Bill 4412, where you've taken it out of the county's control to put bans on solar and wind projects or enact bans on solar and wind projects, you've taken the local control out of it to prohibit some of these solar projects and wind projects, to make it harder for them to eat up this food source, the land. So Schlutelman, the Will County board member, brought this up, and I thought it was really interesting. She said, why don't we put these solar panels on warehouses or in parking lots or somewhere that's better suited for them than farmland? Farmland we should be using to feed America. You've got this local farmland being sold off to foreign entities, which could be a threat to your national security as well. And I understand the whole argument where they're like, oh, it's got to be close to where they can get into the grid. But there's got to be some warehouses that you could get the solar panels on somewhere other than all of our farmland. 3,600 acres. I mean, that's a ton of farmland. And then you've got one in Illinois. The largest one is 4,100 acres. I mean, eventually it's all going to be solar panels. So according to Schlottleman, the residents actually asked Esonia, which is this multinational renewable energy conglomerate based in Spain. The residents asked, hey, are we at least going to get some of the energy that's produced from these solar panels? Is it going to lower our electricity bill? And where does that power go once it's produced? Well, it turns out, it's not going to help lower their ComEd bills. It's going to all go, the beneficiary of this project is going to be Amazon. So we're benefiting large corporations. See what your plan is doing, JB? Do you see what's going on here, JB? You say that, the wealthy have to pay their fair share and that these evil corporations, they're to blame, and the corporate income tax is the highest we've got in the nation, one of the highest we've got in the nation, and you're like, oh, shame on you, corporations. Your plan is only benefiting the big corporations you claim that you hate, okay? So they're not benefiting the people. With these solar panels and with these wind plants and solar plants. So the Will County board member, Katie Schlottleman, she said, with solar being so new and this plant being so large, it could impact the animals that live there, and it could also be a threat to the environment, which is another thing I want to talk about. It's not green energy, right? It's green energy, where it's all about the money, right? We know this. They know that we know this. So it is going to be a threat to the animals that live in that area. I know exactly where this is going up. It's beautiful. I ride down that country road. It's called Smiley Road. It's beautiful. It's going to go all along Smiley Road. And there's not going to be any animals there. I love to looking at the deer out in the fields. And they're taking all of this precious land away. Farmland, there's corn everywhere. There's not going to be enough food, and at the same time they say, oh, you can't eat meat anymore. Okay, because it's a threat to our planet, and the cows farting is going to cause the wind to change a different direction, I guess. And they say you can't eat meat anymore. Okay, but at the same time they're taking away the land to grow vegetables. So what are we going to eat? You know what I mean? I just don't understand what they're anti-human. These people are anti-human. All right, I do have to take a quick break, but when I come back, the federal government and its bureaucratic agencies, they have shown such disregard for Americans in North Carolina, and they're failing to assist. FEMA is failing to assist in one of the worst disasters we've seen in years. And they're preventing volunteers now from responding, and volunteers from getting resources to these hurricane victims. So Elon Musk is calling out FEMA, and he's accused this bureaucratic agency of preventing SpaceX engineers from delivering Starlink terminals and supplies to these devastated areas in North Carolina. And, not only is the agency, we have them failing at assisting these people who are in these areas, but they're also not allowing volunteers to help. They don't want anybody else to help. So this is tragic. It's really tragic. So we're going to talk about this here next. Elon says his blood is boiling. So is mine. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Find me on YouTube and Rumble. Hey, good morning. I so do appreciate you tuning in each and every single morning. Can we grow underneath the solar panels in the shade? Probably not. Hostas do really well, but they don't produce fruit. So anything that produces a fruit-bearing plant, and I'm not a biologist, or am I? Maybe mushrooms. Yeah, maybe mushrooms would be good. But I'm not a biologist or anything, but not a lot of fruit-bearing plants do well in the shade. They need, because they flower, right? So fruit, flower, same thing. For a strawberry, the strawberry actually starts out as a flower. You know, the green stems that come out underneath it, it actually starts out as a flower. And the flowers, they of course need photosynthesis and they need to open up. And a lot of fruit bearing. Now, mushrooms, they're a fungus, right? Also not very high in caloric intake, right? So these are the same people who say that you can't eat meat anymore, but then they're also taking away the precious farmland that we need to grow vegetables, corn, soy, pumpkins, right? I was just in Morton the other day, and they have these huge fields of pumpkins. You take away the ground and you put these solar panels on top, and well, now I don't know how these solar panels, like I've never really gotten super close up to one. I don't know how far they come off the ground, but there's another thing that you need to consider with solar panels is that the energy or the product is very new. We don't know a whole lot about solar panels and how they react. We do know that there have been a ton of fires, and when they do catch on fire, they're very hard to put out. These fires are very tough to put out. Now that's happened in Farmington, Illinois. Was it Augustana College? These Walmart has tried to put them on top of their rooftops. Olympia High School, and I think middle school. It's the same building there, but and they're putting the solar panels back on top of the roof. You guys remember locally that Olympia School District, they had the solar panels up on top of the roof, and then it caught on fire. Took so long to get this fire out, and you know, once these things catch on fire, it's hard to put it out. It's not like your average fire where you can just spray it down. They got to do special things, and I'm not, you know, a fire official. I'm not going to pretend to speak, but there's something with the converter. You have to unplug the converter and things like that. So it's a process to get this fire out. If a solar panel combusts, I think it's Augustana College that caught on fire as well. Solar fire. Let me look this up really quick. Yep, solar fire. Augustana PepsiCo Center. Augustana College Rec Center's roof catches fire. Solar panels. Yep. Yep, it was the Augustana College. There was also Walmart. They started putting solar panels up on top of their roofs. They're not safe. That's why they're not putting them on top of warehouses. That's why they're not putting them in parking lots, because they're just not safe. This is a pseudoscience. It hasn't been around very long, and they're going to, you know, kind of, what do you say in the science world? Test their theories out in this precious farmland where there's no people around, because the last thing they want to do is have a fire break out and somebody dies as a result of that fire, a solar panel fire. Which could have happened. It very well could have happened at the Olympia School where all the children are. And guess what they're doing? They're putting them back up. You know, I mean, this is starting to get really ridiculous with the solar panel crap. I am all for innovation. I am all for solar. I have solar, not panels, but I think solar energy is really cool. I have for an emergency preparedness kit, I'm kind of a prepper myself, but we have like these little solar panel lights that have the solar panel, and then you put them out in the sun, and then, you know, you hit a button and then you have lights, flashlights, solar powered flashlights, just in case the power goes out and we need light and things like that. So I'm not against solar panels or energy. I'm against eating up our precious farmland. We need to wait to get these solar panels up to a point where we know they're not going to combust randomly, and they're not going to cause massive fires. We need to get to a point where our fire departments are equipped with responding to solar panel fires. And we need, you know, extensive training. We need to be prepared if we're going to go this route, and we need to start putting solar panels on things that don't eat up precious farmland. For example, I'm totally all for, you know, all my neighbors around here, they've got solar panels on top of their houses. I'm fine with that. Whatever. You know, you do you, solar panels on top of your house, that's fine. It might combust. I worry for people all the time about that combusting, and really they're subverting zoning laws as well, residential areas. If you're producing power for the grid or for your own house, then we should probably rezone that area to be industrial, but they're kind of subverting zoning laws, which I have an issue with. But anyway, not against solar, just against going about this too quickly. And people passing legislation that takes it out of the locals' hands, like Governor J.B. Pritzker. Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. The news and talk Bloomington Normal. Go ahead, text me at 309-451-9299. We are going to get to Elon Musk and how he's blasting FEMA. His blood is boiling because they can't get the Starlink terminals, the internet, into these devastated areas, these 6 states that were devastated. They're trying to get the Starlink terminals into North Carolina. Specifically, they're trying to get the supplies in there, and these engineers, SpaceX engineers, they've been told, nope. You can't come in, you can't help people. And Elon Musk has called out FEMA and has accused this bureaucratic agency of preventing these SpaceX engineers from helping people. They won't help, FEMA won't help, but they're also not letting anybody else help either, the volunteers. So we're going to get to that story quickly. I want to talk about the solar panels. I think it's interesting that you've got the county board member, Will County board member, Katie Schlottelman, talking about, this 3,600 acre solar plant that's slated for Custer Park. They've tabled the project for now, but it could come back after the election. Once, of course, they might lose their split, the Republican-Democrat split on that board. But I want to talk about how solar panels, it'd be cool if we could put them on top of warehouses. It'd be cool if we could put them in parking lots. But here's why they don't do that, and then they use our precious farmland. The reason why is because these things combust. Several instances where you've got Augustana College, their rec center. This was, what was the year on this? 2023. Augustana College, the recreational center, there was a fire, right? And then the fire officials had to come out. They didn't know how to put it out. I mean, it takes long to put these solar panel fires out. Olympia High School, or Olympia School District, they had they're putting them back up, by the way, which makes a whole lot of sense. Not that fire, it caused all kinds they had to replace their entire gym floor at Olympia. Walmart has tried to do solar panels on top of their rooftops, and they stopped doing it because of the fires that break out. Farmington, Illinois, there was a fire that broke out in the middle of a field somewhere, but it took days. It takes days for these fire officials to firefighters put out the fire that is caused by these solar panels. So, as much as I would want, these solar panels not to eat up precious farmland and put them on farms, they're not safe. They're not safe to put them on parking lots yet or warehouses yet. And I think we need to perfect the technology, obviously, before we start eating up into our precious farmland. And really, this is just it's a guinea pig project where we don't know what we're doing with these things. The fire departments, they're not up to speed of how to respond to these solar fires. So we need to get up to speed on these things before we start, putting them up on the parking lots and warehouses. But we definitely should not be putting them on our precious farmland, the food, where we grow our food. All right, I do want to talk about Elon Musk. Let's get to this story. The federal government and its bureaucratic agencies, they have shown that they don't care. They hate you. They hate Americans. They hate North Carolina, and they're failing to assist in one of the worst natural disasters I think we've seen in years. So they're preventing actually volunteers from dedicating their time, dedicating the resources to try to help the folks inside these states, these 6 different states. So Elon Musk calling out FEMA, saying that the SpaceX engineers are being intercepted and they can't deliver the Starlink terminals. This is internet. They're trying to get internet to the people who have been affected by this storm. And you would have thought that their Maui response was one of the worst scandals in American history, right? We know that fire was definitely preventable. Nobody did their job correctly. But the federal government, they're topping that response to Maui, okay? They're topping it. Yeah, this is terrible. So Musk claiming it's a blood-worthy offense. He says his blood is boiling. And there is a lack of concern for human life. And it's unfathomable that they're getting away with this. So according to the New York Post, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, they outraged critics aired allegations that Hurricane Helene relief workers were sitting idle without orders, that these FEMA people, they're on the ground there, but they're not doing anything. And those that are working are actually seizing aid deliveries from volunteers and slow walking the distribution of Starlink satellite internet equipment. Wow. So the allegations were outlined by Elon Musk, the CEO of Starlink, and Representative Matt Gaetz. He also was talking about, and he cited on the ground whistleblowers who are talking about what FEMA is doing in these areas. Whistleblowers are saying, hey, FEMA's just sitting there. And if they are doing anything, they're seizing the aid. They're seizing our supplies. And the death toll there is now topping 215 across 6 states. So Elon Musk, he wrote on X, on Twitter, he says, just received from a SpaceX engineer helping on the ground in North Carolina that FEMA is not merely failing to adequately help people in trouble, they're actually actively blocking citizens who are trying to help, volunteers who are trying to help. The note, he posted the text messages. He says, the SpaceX engineer, he says, hey, Elon, update here on the site of Asheville, North Carolina. We've powered up 2 large operating bases for choppers to deliver goods into hands. We deployed 300 plus Starlinks and and it's going to save a lot of lives. The big issue is that FEMA is actively blocking shipments and seizing goods and services locally, and they're locking them away. And they want their own resources in the hands of these victims. FEMA says that you can't bring in your own goods and services, that we're going to do it. So why would they do this? Really, why would they do this? They've already claimed that they spent all of their funding on foreign nationals. They're the ones who said that they don't have any more funding anymore. And now they're preventing other people from helping. Is it because it makes them look bad? Really, I'm trying to figure out why they would seize resources from the victims. I don't know. They've already proven how pathetic they are. We know that they've taken all of their funding and they've given it to illegal aliens. They've also given them to, foreign countries. They've given all of the money away, and they're pathetic, and they've already proved that. And now, I don't think it's really possible for them to make themselves look even worse. So at this point, they might as well just let the volunteers come in and help the people who need it. I do have to take a quick break, but we're going to wrap this story up here on the other side. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. Yeah, I'm going to have to ask them about their solar panel fire. Now, I talked with somebody actually at the grocery store, and they were telling me a little bit about the Olympia High School, and I know that they're putting the solar panels back up. You know, you'd think after a devastating fire, I mean, that alone is just ridiculous. After a devastating fire from these solar panels that caused you to replace this huge gymnasium floor, costed the taxpayers tons of dollars. This is a public school, right? So it costed the taxpayers tons of money to replace that gymnasium floor, replace the roof, everything. you would think that the thing that caused that amount of damage, that they would get rid of those, right? That they'd just get rid of the solar panels and they'd say, we tried it, it didn't work. Unfortunately, there was a fire caused by these solar panels, and we're not going to put them back up, right? Yeah, no, they didn't do that. They're deciding to put the solar panels back up, which makes no sense. So fast forward 5-10 years from down the road, if they catch on fire again, I mean, you have nobody to blame but the elected officials in that public school who are the decision makers in allowing those solar panels to remain on the rooftops. And, I don't know exactly what the investigation determined about how the fire started, but I do know the response team at the time, they said it was because of the solar panels. Okay, so fires don't just start randomly, right? And it took forever to put the fire out because they're solar panels, right? And you can't just splash water onto them. It doesn't put the fire out. You've got to do special response to the solar panel type fire. So yeah, I will. I'll look into that. There's not much to really look into. I mean, the fact that they're putting them back up tells you all you really need to know. Let's avoid any kind of fire ever in the future, and let's just not put them back up. All right, I do want to talk about Elon Musk a little bit more. Smash that like button if you're watching, but I want to talk about Elon Musk and how he said his blood is boiling because of FEMA's reaction to the Starlink terminals. And I want to know why. Why would FEMA be doing this? And it kind of reminds me of the Maui fire where they actually were turning people around and they wouldn't allow people to exit through the only exit to run away from the fire. I don't know what's going on here. Are they actually that anti-human? Are they actually they have such a disregard for human life that they're willing to prevent, and they're really willing to seize goods and services from volunteers who are trying to get it in the hands of these victims? Are they that anti-human? Are they that worried that this is going to make them look bad if the volunteers bring in internet terminals for people to use? So it's very scary how they've taken control and they've stopped people from helping. They're blocking shipments of these new Starlinks. And that's sad. It's really sad. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. Runs on paper, not deeds. Yeah. Another government agency that runs on papers, not deeds. Yeah, they don't actually do anything. I say this all of the time. Has there ever been a government interaction where you've actually enjoyed it? And you're like, yeah, that was easy. That was fun. That was fast. It was a great product. I've never experienced that. Not ever. It's usually pretty slow. There's always a problem. Anytime I get into a government building and I have to do something like the DMV or anything like that, it's always a headache. Anytime I interact with government, it winds up probably, I'd say, 8 times out of 10. 8 times out of 10, the services that they provide are crap. Okay. And that's just, I think that a lot of people have that same experience where they interact with government and it's just a headache. Think about your taxes. How easy is it to do your taxes? Hey, good morning. So do appreciate you being here each and every morning, Monday through Friday. It's a daily show. Conservative Cat from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Before we took the break, I was telling you about FEMA. So the big issue there is that FEMA is actively blocking shipments and seizing goods and services locally and locking them away. And they are saying, hey, you know what? We're going to use our own goods. We're going to use our own services, FEMA, which is just so annoying because they've already come out and said it, that they don't have enough funding. Mayorkas, he said, oh yeah, we're totally prepared for hurricane season. That was 3 months ago. Now fast forward, Hurricane Helene, he says, we don't have enough money to respond to this disaster or future disasters. There's more hurricanes brewing right now. So they've already admitted that they gave all their money away to foreign nationals. And now they're preventing volunteers from helping. I don't know why that would be. Is it because they're worried it's going to make them look bad if the volunteers come in and help? I don't know. So Elon Musk, he said it's really scary how they have taken control to stop people from helping. Okay, so he's trying to get in Starlink terminals for people to have internet, and they were worried that they were going to shut down the airspace to regulate the private choppers that were riding in to deliver the Starlink terminals and the supplies. Okay, so they were talking about shutting down the airspace for private choppers. Secretary Pete Buttigieg, he claimed none of that was true, even though all of the evidence proves otherwise, that yeah, they were trying to shut down the airspace for private choppers. So the nerve of these tyrants to deny reality and claim any inconvenient truth is wrong is infuriating. Okay, they're tyrants. They're trying to say, oh, that's not reality. No, that is the reality, because people on the ground are saying that's happening, where FEMA is not allowing the supplies to get into the Helene victims. Your government despises you. They'd rather block efforts than help Americans. They're blocking the efforts of the volunteers. Never rely on the government. Never rely on the government. They wouldn't think twice about giving your money over to foreign nationals. Don't rely on the government. They make every situation worse. Okay. And, if they just, by doing the bare minimum, okay, rather than make the situation worse, just get out of there. You're making it worse. Just get out. We don't even want FEMA there anymore, because they're seizing the supplies that the volunteers are trying to bring in. All right, I do have to, wow, that's the end of the show. I so do appreciate you tuning in each and every single day. I do also want to say that big thank you to those who showed up at the Davis Lodge. It was nice seeing you. Big thank you to the McLean County Republicans for letting me speak. You guys can text me at 309-451-9299. And as always, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'll be back at it tomorrow morning, bright and early at 6 a.m. Bye-bye. Love you.